Senator Johnson. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Natalie?
Great, great. The weather's beautiful, so it's a great day to discuss some legislation. It is my understanding that Senate Bill 966 passed as filed. However, the House version has all original language except for the provisions increasing criminal penalties. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
basically, yeah, the Progressive Caucus pushed back against the criminal penalties. So
Okay.
that's where we're at. We got to figure out if we want to move forward on this thing or not.
Great. Okay. So, I did meet with Representative Erlach and the House Speaker's office several times to try and work out an agreement with them. They are stern on their decision to leave out the criminal penalties. And I understand your concern about bringing the strongest bill possible to the governor, and that you have such a well-respected reputation for being a champion for animals here in Bliss. And I also realize that there's national media attention garnered, and it has made it so you are adamant about passing a bill with strict standards and heavy penalties. And I understand that. So I think it's really important for us to look at the big picture here and the implications that we could have if the bill doesn't get to the governor's desk. This bill is not just about protecting animals. It's also about protecting our community as well. That's really the heart of it. So if I could direct your attention to subsection C of the bill, which requires a strict care program to, ensure the animals in the breeding facilities are living in humane and clean conditions, and personal protective equipment for all veterinarians and employees are also required to help prevent the transmission of zoonotic diseases. And the reason why I bring this up is because the health of our community is really on the line here. And the undercover investigation at VIAB showed moldy feces in the dog enclosures and dog food containing maggots. So these unclean confined conditions for animals has historically led to several public health issues. And these crises over the past few years include COVID-19, of course, and now most recently, the avian flu. And this is just another reason why we need to work with the conference committee to get this bill moving.
Yeah. So I think that's great. I believe that COVID came out of a lab, not out of a wildlife market. So,
okay.
But I do, obviously there are concerns with public health, having these filthy, disgusting, cruel facilities anyway.
Sure.
It sounds like, the provisions of the bill that, aside from the criminal penalties, I feel like they're addressing the problem. My concern is that on the federal level, we have criminal and civil penalties, and these problems still seem to persist anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So removing the teeth from this bill that we've gotten so far close to the finish line, it's disappointing to me. And I worry that some of these criminals who are abusing animals are not going to be held accountable. So do you think that the bill as written without the criminal penalty is still going to solve these problems and prevent future abuses and violations?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I understand your concern as well. I know we've been working together for years. I'm the director of government affairs at People Protecting Animals, as you know. So this is really important to me as well. And while there's that opposition towards criminal penalties, there's certainly opportunities for civil monetary penalties for facilities that violate this bill. And I think that that's the angle that we should go there with. And what we really want to accomplish here is to set a precedent for Bliss as a leading state in its laws protecting animals. And most of all, this bill really needs to serve as a deterrence, especially since Bliss is starting to become a research hub. So there's a lot of eyes on us right now, as you mentioned, nationwide. And we really can't risk not getting this bill passed in time, as there are many other research facilities in Bliss besides VIAB who could be possible offenders in the future. So you know that I love research and statistics, so I wanted to share some numbers with you. So in 2023, the Animal Legal Defense Fund set out their ranking, and they ranked Maine and Illinois as the top 2 states in the US for the strength of their animal protection statutes. And Bliss has a great chance at making the top of this list next year. And getting this bill on the governor's desk could help us get closer to setting that precedent. And I know you're feeling really frustrated and concerned about the time constraint and the growing national media attention, and I hear you on that. And at the end of the day, you should be extremely proud of all the advancements you've made for the animals here in Bliss and the leading bills that we've worked on together over the past few years. The House version of this bill, to answer your question, will still go a long way toward improving the conditions for animals in Bliss, and it will ensure that the bill passes this session, which is most important. So we can bring the civil penalties to the House committee's attention, which will help us come to what I think would be a fair and equitable compromise, and ultimately move the bill to the governor's desk, which is the ultimate goal here. And if you don't mind, if you have a few more minutes, I wanted to share with you some federal legislation to shine a light on really what we're trying to do here that I think is a great example of why we should talk to the committee. So just a few months ago, actually, on the federal level, the FDA Modernization Act was signed into law by President Biden, and this law supports the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to consider superior non-animal drug testing methods instead of requiring animal experimentation. However, the drug sponsors will still be able to use animal testing where appropriate. And the sponsor was Senator Cory Booker and Senator Rand Paul, who is well respected in national media, and they received bipartisan support on this bill. And it's a great advancement for animal protection here in the US. And really my point that I want to get at here is that this bill is a great example of taking smaller steps toward a greater goal. And that goal is eliminating animal testing and suffering altogether. So nationwide, there was strong public support for this law, and the momentum will continue, I believe, in the state of Bliss for Bill 966 and the House version. And I strongly urge you to work with the conference committee and come to a resolution to get this bill to the governor's desk as soon as possible. So with that, on behalf of the animals and the constituents of Bliss, thank you very much. But I just wanted to bring light to those issues. And do you have any clarifications or questions for me regarding those facts?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious about what your members and the public are going to think about the bill without the criminal penalties. If we do remove some of the teeth, is it still going to have enthusiasm and support that it has now?
Sure, of course. I mean, I think it's important to remember, like I said, that smaller steps are better than not taking any step at all, because if we don't reach an agreement with the House, then we're looking at possibly not getting the bill done in this session, right? So I think that that would have even more repercussions, not just in the state of Bliss, but nationwide in terms of media. I know that you've spoken to a couple news outlets, and I think that that could be a lot worse to not have anything on the table than to have the bill with the criminal penalties. And it's something that, you know, we can amend and consider in the future. And for now, we can go back to the House and really talk about civil penalties with them. That could really hit them in their pockets just the same.
Great. Well, I mean, that was, there's a lot of food for thought. You know, I've been on the fence about this, but I think based on what they're doing at the federal level and the state level, it sounds like what we have here, even without the criminal penalties, will start to put a dent in this problem. And it's something we should support anyway.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm glad that you're on the same page with me, Senator Johnson. It's been a pleasure working with you the past few years, and I know that moving forward, we're going to accomplish so much more here in Bliss as well. So thank you very much for your time, Senator, on behalf of all the animals and your constituents, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Great job.